So, hello there. This is just a side story about my grandfather. How he would always he would tell me his stories and why he would tell me them. He would tell me these stories because when I was 10 or 9 years old, I started watching golf, and he worked at a furniture store, and they had giant screen TVs. So they had those big TVs that were like jumbotron type of TVs back in the day, and they had golf on. And in fact, this had the Masters playing. I didn't know what the Masters were, but they were a golf tournament that was really popular. And I didn't know at the time, but it was like a major championship. So anyway, I'd watch golf, and Tiger Woods had won, and I was like, dang. It was amazing because it was just like every shot just went in, and I was just intrigued. And he was so young, and I was only maybe 9 or 10, and I was like, maybe I could, and so we started going golfing. It was a golf course that was near our town, and so basically it was me and my grandfather. I would get dropped off at the house at his house at 8 o'clock in the morning, 8:30, early, and maybe 9, and then we'd go golfing. And I think it was usually a Saturday, because Sunday was always church. So Saturday, we went, and he would go to this golf course, and this golf course was just a random patch of grass. 9 holes, nothing crazy. It just had, just a hole and a flag and some grass in between. Nothing crazy. The greens were sometimes weeds, and it, was kept up okay. And so sometimes they'd have tournaments there, so we would have to get in between them. But anyway, we'd play golf. We'd play 9 holes. And then, during the golf course time we'd play, he would tell me some stories, but I can't really remember those stories as much. Maybe I do, but there was mostly just like how was your day, and what I wanted to grow up in high school and junior high, what did I want to do. I have some recordings of it actually, and if anyone's, I guess, depends on whoever listens to this. It's oh yeah, I want to hear your recordings as a kid. It was fun. And I forgot to mention that my grandfather always made the tournament it'd be like a tournament, even though it was just me and him, and it made a big deal. And it was this is the most amazing thing in the whole wide world. We're playing a tournament, and the president of the United States was there or something like that, and they'd have a crowd of people, and it was just me and him, even though it literally was just me and him, this golf course, because it was in the middle of nowhere, and not many people would come in lately, at the time when I was going. And anyway, so he would do this, we'd finish it, and at the last hole was the tournament hole. No matter what score you had, even if you're 3 ahead, 6 down, whoever won the last hole won the thing. So it really didn't matter what score you got, which is cool. So anyway, the last hole, we'd beat it out, and who were going to win, and I would usually win, but sometimes he would win, which is really awesome. So anyway, we'd go to eat lunch, and it was always McDonald's at the time. Then later on Burger King, but McDonald's was at the beginning. So we would get some hamburgers. We would go to the parking lot because we didn't really like going inside. It just too crowded. Not really crowded. It was just it wasn't air conditioned enough. They would use it, but it was always still warm. I'm not sure how you'd feel about back then the day, but it was always warm. So anyway, we would go in there, get our food, come back, and then in the parking lot. And that is when he would tell me the stories. Now, the stories that he would say, sometimes the stories about the war, sometimes the stories was about his life. Sometimes the stories was about his friend who was from Oklahoma. That's those tornado stories you heard previously. So he would tell me these stories, and some of them were just, crazy. But some of them are about like the war in Korea, and I was like, I didn't know that it snowed in Korea at the time. The stories he would tell me, it seemed like, it was always, humid and, but yeah, it snowed, and I'm like, wow. So the stories he would tell me was just kind of just a little bit of this and a little bit of that. And another one is that afterwards, as time went on, we would go to his hometown, and that was really cool. He lived in this town that was like maybe, I don't know, maybe there was like 1,000 people that lived there, or 2,000. I mean, not a lot of people back then. And now, at the time I went, there's only like the same amount of people, and because it's basically a farming town, So anyway, one time when I was really young, and I have the recording somewhere, he would show me the place. We would go there, and he would show me like where his house was, and he'd like show me like the cemetery where his dad was buried, and he would show me about his school, and and this is when I was really young. And some of the stories about those giant birds, we actually went there and showed me the trees that he talked about. Because I just, I'm a kid. Well, these trees were those oak trees in California. And they were, to me, it looked huge. When I was a kid, everything looked really big to me. But honestly, when I think about it, even when I was in high school, when I think about that, the trees were big. They were really big. They, so like when he told me about those bird stories, a 10-foot wingspan, I'm like, I don't know. It could be. Maybe it was exaggerated just a little bit, but to me, his stories were real true, and I have a lot of stories. A lot of stories to talk about that I have on recordings, but I'm trying to just talk about him so I can remember him. The more I tell it, the better I am, because I can remember what I did. Because we would, go golfing and, all the time, and if you go to the restaurant, and I remember McDonald's, Burger King, it's not really a restaurant, but it was good food. And I remember afterwards we would go the long way home because I wanted to spend more time, and then I would get dropped off, and then that was a thing. But I forgot to mention, and this is just, anyone wants to hear, but in the next audio, I'm going to tell you a story that he told me when I used to spend the night here, and I think you'll like it. So stay tuned for the next audio right now.